Chris Paul is with us here on the Adam Gold Show. I'm going to make myself old here. I covered you in college. You and I never spoke one-on-one. It was always in a locker room setting. I probably had hair at the time. So thank you very much. And I was at the soccer tournament a year ago, and I'm like, wait a second, that's Chris Paul running around in the VIP section. So how did you get hooked up with a soccer tournament?
I was working. I was working. I wasn't just in the VIP section. First of all, Adam, thanks so much for having me. And if you're saying you old, what you think that makes me?
You're much younger than I am, sir. We can fight about this if you want. But
college for me was 20 years ago now, which is wild. It's wild. But the soccer tournament has been so fun, right? I'm sure you know this, but like when you're working, you want to work with good people. And so a partner in the creator of the soccer tournament and the tournament and the basketball tournament is a guy named John Muger, who is amazing. So I got connected with him with the basketball tournament years ago. We started brainstorming, came up with the soccer tournament. And last year being our first year, we didn't know what to expect. I'm glad you got a chance to see it. And it was so funny because last year when it got over, we did a Zoom the very next day just to download on what went well, what we could get better at. And we were so excited about year two. And now here it comes.
Yeah, so on that Zoom, and Chris Paul is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. On that Zoom, what did you guys come up with? Because I had some ideas because they asked me. Some of the planners asked me. So what did you come up with that you thought maybe we can do this? This would work better if we did it this way.
Yeah, it was a lot of different things, from some of the bigger things to even the smaller things, and talking about the scoreboards and the clock where you can see that. I talked to some of the players and asked them if they like the field size, right? Is this field too long? Is it too wide? This, that, and we got a lot of feedback. And I think the overall concept was people loved it. They loved the competitiveness of it. They loved the festival style feel of it.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of the things that I was most curious and excited about was to see how the U.S. women's national team did, right? I played basketball my whole life, and I'm like, man, I want to see how and those women fought so hard, right? To see Heather O'Reilly out there, and I was a big fan of Mia Hamm as a kid, so I had my daughter. I ran across the field so I could get a picture with Mia Hamm, and through all of those talks, a year went by. But even I can honestly say this: the first thing that we talked about was making a men's and women's tournament. That was one of the first things that we talked about. And so I'm sorry to keep talking. You just tell I'm excited. It's so cool to be able to do this to where we're going to have $1 million winner for the men's and $1 million winner for the women's.
Chris Paul is joining us. Don't apologize for talking. They hear me talk all day long. The more we hear from you, the better. Heather O'Reilly was just in studio with us last week, and I was at that match against Wrexham, and it was their second match. And I contend that even though the women got beat, I think the final score was 12-0, the most impressive performance I saw in 5 days of the soccer tournament was the U.S. women's goalkeeper who made about 1,000 great saves, but she just couldn't do anything about the goals.
I ran across the field and hugged her, right? I just told her how amazing it was, because them guys, they putting foot to that ball. You hear me? It's coming in hot. And so I definitely hope she's there again this year so I can see her. And, we got 48 men's teams, 8 women's teams, and I'm looking forward to it probably more than anybody.
I am with you. It starts Wednesday of next week, runs through Monday with the 2 championship matches on Monday. All the games are on one of the ESPN family of networks, and again, $1 million for each bracket. The champion of each bracket gets $1 million. So J.J. Watt is going to play. I think his wife is also playing for Burnley. J.J. Watt is a part owner of Burnley.
Yep.
Pat McAfee is playing.
Yep.
Why isn't Chris Paul
because Chris Paul is still an active player in the NBA. That's exactly why. And Chris Paul will absolutely have to train before I thought about doing something like this. But to see the shape that Ocho Cinco was in last year, and to see how he's been training, getting ready for it this year. Pat McAfee, who I know from playing in my golf tournament one year. I know JJ very well. That's how JJ actually got into the tournament. I sent JJ a text and said, look, man, we got this soccer tournament. You should bring Burnley in.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew he was bringing the team in. Didn't know he was going to end up playing. So it's going to be so much fun, man. And that's what I say. And just it's such a great event because you can bring your family out and you get a chance to enjoy each other, enjoy a good time, and see some really competitive soccer.
Yeah, and I was looking at the weather. It doesn't look I don't see any 90s. Last year for the first few days, it was like in the 70s, was unseasonably good. Quarterfinal day, it kind of reached up close to the 90s, but it looks like the weather is going to be great. Chris Paul is joining us here. So are you saying that if and when you ever retire from the NBA, that you'll come and play?
For sure. For sure.
Okay.
Somebody got to put me on their team. You know what I mean? I'm not nice by any means. Steve Nash did his thing playing in it last year, but it's such a good time. And I know I keep saying that, but for me, I live on the West Coast for all of this time out of the year, so I don't get a chance to really see a lot of my friends that I grew up with in Winston-Salem. So me and my brother are actually bringing our friends up from Winston-Salem, right? And we're making it like a guy's, like trip or whatnot, just to hang out and have a good time those days.
By the way, I watched Ocho Cinco in one of the Natty FC matches last year. He can play a little bit. He posts up, right? Yeah. He's sort of like Shaq trying to post up, but I mean, he's a pretty good player, and he loves the game.
I watched him play in their game. It was down on the left field, right?
Yep.
If you're walking in, it was down the bottom left field. And listen, you don't become a professional athlete overnight, right? There's a competitiveness about you in any and everything that you do, and you can see it from Ocho.
Are you a soccer fan? Do you like the game? Do you watch the game apart from being a part of the soccer tournament?
I do. I'm gonna tell you, I was not introduced to soccer when I was a kid, right? Sure. At all. It was basketball and football and baseball. My parents made me and my brother pick two sports because it was too expensive and they was moving around too much. The only time I got close to a soccer ball was when I was at recess, right? And I was running around playing. I have kids now. I have a 15-year-old son, 11-year-old daughter. My son was so good in soccer. He's left-footed. I took him over to Barcelona, to FC Barcelona, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. Didn't motivate him enough because he stopped playing. But my daughter still plays. And so it's been really cool for me because most of my life was surrounded around basketball. And so I got into soccer a lot more with my kids.
So do you watch it? Do you have you picked a Premier League side? Do you root for your friend LeBron's Liverpool?
I watch it and stuff like that. Obviously, when I went out to FC Barcelona, I got a chance to know some of those guys pretty well. It's been cool to not necessarily say this team is my team or whatnot, more so like players, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like Paulo Pogba and all these different guys, but definitely a fan.
Yeah, you did Paul Pogba. My son, who is a goalkeeper, and last year was a ball kid during the quarterfinals. He was just standing on the corner right by one of the goals, just absolutely loving life. He's a big Paul Pogba fan as well. Maybe you should buy a team. Get involved in a group like LeBron did. Maybe you can get him with Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney on Wrexham.
Yeah. I actually seen Ryan a couple weeks ago or whatnot, and have watched Wrexham on Disney and all that stuff. So definitely a goal of mine for sure.
All right. Do you mind if I ask you just a couple of basketball questions, not necessarily about games and stuff, but you alluded, and Chris Paul is joining us, you alluded you're still an active player, 19 years in the league. How much longer are you going to do it?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know. I got a couple more left. I think for me now, the the hardest part is not basketball, right? I still love the game just like the day that I stepped foot in the league. Um, is my kids, my family. You know, like I said, I have a 15-year-old son, 11-year-old daughter. This was my 5th season living away from them, right? And
Right.
so when I'm in San Francisco, when I was in Oklahoma and in Phoenix, my kids stay here in LA. You know, and I know people say, "Oh, that's your choice." Well, my kids have moved so much that I wanted them to have some stability. So I always talk to them about it, you know, and if they say, you know, Dad, we're ready, then it's time.
So it's cool that it's about them. I know, like, I miss watching Dwayne Wade. I watched him when he was at Marquette, and I fell in love with the way Dwayne Wade plays, and I miss watching Dwayne. Also, the longer you play, the longer you'll stay ahead of LeBron on the all-time assist list.
Man, I don't know. That's definitely not my motivation, though. I'll tell you that much.
He's right behind you. Also, I mean, you'll get into the top 25 next year in games played, assuming you come back. Are you going to stay in Golden State, or what are your plans?
I don't know yet. Like, it's completely up to them. I enjoyed my season there. We didn't make it to where we wanted to. We had a very up and down season. I broke my hand for the 5th time, but you know, it was a tough season, but one I think we could build on.
Chris Paul is joining us. A couple of more things before we say goodbye. A player like Anthony Edwards, regardless of how this season ends for him and the Timberwolves, the personality that he plays with, the personality that he shows, they're talking about face of the game. I think until LeBron has been retired about 10 years, he's probably still going to be the face. But what are your thoughts on a guy like Anthony Edwards and, you know, not where he can take the game, but, you know, but what he represents for the modern NBA?
He's a hell of a player, man, and a great, you know, one of the many great faces of the league. I think it's interesting for me now to been a kid, to watch the game, to watch the Michael Jordans, the Isaiah Thomases, and all of this stuff. And everybody's like, who's the face? Who's going to be the face?
Right.
We get caught up in that instead of watching the greatness of all these different players. And what happens is, you know, with the news cycle now is who's the latest and greatest, right? When Shea was having a great playoff, you know what I mean? Everybody's like, Shea's the face. Now Anthony Edwards went to that's just, it is what it is. But I think for me, I just appreciate the competitiveness, the greatness, and the time that we'll get a chance to watch these guys grow.
And final thing for you, and then we'll wrap up by just kind of reiterating the soccer tournament. I saw the Olympic roster unveiled, and I'm just like, are you kidding? He's going again. What is it about the pull of the Olympics that has you guys so absolutely dialed in?
I mean, it's an opportunity to represent your country, right? For us athletes, there's no greater honor. There's so many people that go out there and literally risk their lives to protect our freedoms, right? And for us, some of us older guys who've had an opportunity to really experience that, 2008, 2012, I got to play in both of those Olympics, and it was just a different time in the world at the time where, you know, we had soldiers who came and talked to us. You know, we had veterans that really lay their lives on the line. And now we just get an opportunity to represent our country in a different way. And so when we play for our respective teams, right? I was with the Warriors this year. Everybody in the Bay, you know, loves us, right? But you go to Boston, everyone hates the Warriors. You go to Lakers, everyone hates the Warriors. And now everyone gets on the same team. And that's one of the only times where everyone is rooting for you, right?
How'd you like playing for K?
Coach K? Now, it was different in 2006. I was fresh out of college.
Yeah.
I was fresh out of Wake Forest. We had to get to know one another. But, you know, once we did that, man, it was priceless. You know, I think there was a respect factor there. And I think there was teaching on both sides. He taught us a lot of things, and we got a chance to teach him a lot.
And what was it like playing with Kobe Bryant?
Man, Kobe different. I mean, you hear all these stories. People talk about Kobe now. It's actually really funny to hear some of those stories because Kobe didn't like a lot of people, to tell you the truth. He just didn't. He didn't. But we had a mutual respect for our competitiveness, right? We went into All-Star games and we didn't treat them like, like a pickup game. We played to win every time we stepped out on the court. And so it was fun to play with a guy like that who, had the same type of intensity and will to win.
Chris Paul, an absolute honor to have you on the program. I'll wave to you and with your guys in the VIP area at the soccer tournament coming up next week. I do appreciate your time. It's going to be a blast. I'm glad it's bigger. I'm glad there's a men's and women's division. Sir. I hope both sides get even bigger next year, and we'll do it again.
No doubt. Thank you too. Thank you too, Adam. I really appreciate it.
Chris, thank you so much, man. Good luck. I'll talk to you.
I'm praying for good weather out there too.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be dry at the very least. So if it's hot, it's hot, but it looks like it's going to be dry.
All right.